All right, should be up and running. Market's been closed for about a minute here. And we have been talking about the all-important daily sell setup, which finally triggered today. So we'll take a look at that, talk about what to expect going into the rest of the week, and what we might look for if the sell setup is going to fail. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. This is Yvonne from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for June 28th, 2022. Q's down 3%, 3.05. SPY down 2%. All right. We've been talking about since the last week, as we were getting the bounce, keeping an eye on the sell setup. We're getting higher lows on the move up. We get a retracement after the last move down. And then once we break a previous bar's low. And on Friday, I said probably get a more neutral day or muted day on Monday. And then earliest what I would expect would be Tuesday. Well, there it is. We tried to move up, got rejected right into that declining 20 MA, and broke below on the Qs and SPY, right below yesterday's low. And so coming into today, if we broke below that, all out bearish, right? Back to bearish, all right? So that's going to be the bias going into tomorrow, all right? Bearish on the Qs and SPY, got a trigger of a daily sell setup, okay? So that's been a pattern we've seen quite frequently because it is typical of a downtrend. We saw a very similar one right here. Move up, break of a previous bar's low, and you can see that led to a pretty big move down. So we're getting another sell set up here. Okay. Now, it's always good also to talk about, well, what would it look like if the pattern were to fail? What should we look for? Maybe even in anticipation if it does fail. Now, there's no reason necessarily to say that this has to fail or that I'm betting on it to fail. It's more just so that we are objective, right? So that we know when the market is telling us, okay, this next leg down may not make it back to the lows, which is our expectation right now, okay, to come back to the lows. All right, so what we could get, and that's primarily due to this hourly still being in an uptrend, has pulled back into some support here, all right, is that if we get a bounce, we try to come in, basically produce another sell setup like we have on the daily, try to produce a lower high, and then actually take that out. We may, we can start to anticipate that this may fail before it actually takes out this pivot. Now, it fails outright above 296.58. Okay, above 296.58, for me, market no longer bearish. Okay. So here's the daily sell setup. I got this question last week too. What would it take for me to, be back bullish on the market and from a more longer term perspective? I said, well, the daily downturn has to end. We need to get a sell setup failure, really. Okay, and so that's going to happen all the way up there, 296.58. That's a ways away. Okay, so we'll be watching this hourly. If there's going to be any indication that this daily sell setup is going to fail, then it'll be the hourly will maintain the uptrend. Okay, so, but to keep things simple for now, and we'll deal with that as it comes. It's going to take, a couple days at least for us to get a pattern like that. So, the hourly we use to predict the next hours and days, just like we use the daily to predict the next days and weeks. So don't want to get too ahead of ourselves talking about, what the hourly could do to fix or to maintain an uptrend. Because right now, the daily is what's in focus, and the daily is telling us we look lower. Okay. All right. Let's go over the plays from today. Really nice job from Sammy here, focusing on the AGRX here. Really good gap up. Really awesome shock value there. You can see the big red bar from yesterday, meaning there was net selling after the gap up yesterday, and then gapping up over it today. So superb job. I mean, there wasn't really anything else to focus on this morning that was going to produce a move like this. Okay, so really, really nice on the AGRX. I think he played it initially over the top and then also added on the pullback. So just home run on the AGRX. Really good gap and really good follow through. So, you know, I know with the really good gaps, they've been kind of far and few in between. That'll change once we get to earnings season. But for now, yeah, we take what we can get. And then as far as scalps go, this ended up being the nicest for me today. The ACHR. Getting filled was difficult, just like a lot of the shorts, whether they were just completely not available or hard to get filled because of the uptick, you know, whatever issue was going on. But yeah, it was really pretty well behaved, actually, the ACHR. You know, penny base there, broke down. I thought it might flip, and so I actually got out and then had to get back in, and then finally put in the bottom right there. So, you know, I wasn't able to really get out at the bottom because of how quickly it flipped, but that was still really nice on the ACHR. And then after that, it got pretty sloppy. So while I was watching it for most of the rest of the afternoon, oh yeah, I did try to get it right there. If you were in the room, you know, I was on the mic at that time. So yeah, that would have been nice to a little bit more on this scalp here just because it was so well behaved, but also it was pretty obvious. Very, very stacked offer, which means a lot of people trying to get shares of this thing. So that made it a little bit difficult. Okay. But I think, you know, the market's moving like we saw today. There's a little bit more scalp potential than there was yesterday. Yesterday, we had more of a narrow range day. So that's pretty common that when the market is not really moving a whole lot, that scalps are not moving as much either. But today, yeah, that was yesterday. You can see stuck in a range there. But today, red bar after red bar. So a lot more follow through, especially the scalps to the downside. All right. All right. So we know what to look for going into tomorrow. Okay. We could get a little bit of a bounce, but really bias is bearish. Okay. And, you know, if we see something going on in the hourly that starts to turn the tide, we'll discuss that tomorrow. All right. That's going to do it for today's market wrap. We'll be back at it tomorrow, and I'll talk to you then. Have a good evening.